Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sell, Scale, and Thrive, the B2B SaaS podcast for founders. This is all about sales, about building your sales capabilities in your organization. Because a startup that sells is a startup that scales. Want to create positive impact by getting your SaaS product out to more customers? Then start here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live with SalesPlaybook. We're so happy to have you here. The topic today is sales power for account executives, how to close bigger deals faster, actually more bigger deals faster, especially now in this recession time or talk of recession. So we have an exciting half an hour coming up together with Manuel Hartmann and Fernanda from SalesPlaybook. And we'll just do how we'll go through this is 5 minutes where Manuel will give us some insights on closing deals. And then the rest of it is Q&A for a deal desk. So what is a deal desk? And maybe introduce yourself, Manuel Hartmann. So over to you.
Yeah, happy to help, and thanks for the intro, Sol. So I think just like closing more bigger deals faster right now, like especially towards year end, but also then like in 2023 will be one of like at least the top 5 priorities. Like for account executives, number 1 priority, obviously. Why they introduce this concept of like a deal desk? Actually, because we just see people as like, look, I appreciate you like taking care of my CRM or taking care of my lead process or taking care of like structure and so on. But what I really need is to close deals, because that gives me like commission as an account executive that contributes to like the annual recurring revenue growth of my company, which then helps us like raise a Series A, Series B, like seed round, whatever it is, like we got in the stage. And that's the thing that matters the most, right? Nobody ever woke up and said like, I became a really successful founder or account executive by having like pipeline X or like CRM Y or tool Z. It was really like I closed a 600K ARR deal, and this got us from like 1.4 to 2 million, which like was like the benchmark for our Series A2. And this is why today really happy to like have just like people with the opportunity to bring on deals. Is like, hey, I really struggle to close this 50K deal. Like it was postponed 3 times. Now I struggle. Procurement has something to say. Like another buyer came in, and like, what shall I do now next to close the deal still this year, ideally, or then in Q1?
Okay, so closing more bigger deals faster is one of the major sales challenges, one of the 5 sales challenges that every B2B SaaS startup encounters on their 0 to 20 million ARR journey. So what would you say are the most important steps or most important skills that an account executive needs to master in order to close deals effectively?
I think for an account executive, what's really important, first of all, is like understanding and like implementing value selling, and like not selling features, not selling like the product, not selling technology, but really taking control of the buyer journey, not even the sales process, and understand like what's like the really like the buyer problem. Can I discover like that is, like how can I qualify if somebody really wants help? How does the journey look like from the initial conversation to actually like a successful customer? And how can I follow up on like initial conversations to make sure I still stay in control? And then I think the second thing is really to negotiate better deals, like that you can actually use like case studies, like how did you negotiate in the past, what works well, what are some levers that you can leverage, and how can you approach these things, like, or especially when you're like in a weak and natural position as a startup towards like a big organization, like a big corporate, for example. And then I think third is really like selling like a doctor, really understanding like how people take decisions like that are healthy for them. Like how can you enter a dialogue, and how can you really structure a collaboration, like building mutual action plans and so on. And then I think the last one is really scaling like social selling for themselves, like really becoming an expert or like a key person of influence in their field. And not only just like writing an email and then writing 3 other emails like, hey, yeah, did you read my previous email? Are you ready to sign? Because that typically leads nowhere. And just building trust most of all as well. I mean, all of these things are related not to like lowering the price or like pressuring people, but it's really about building enough trust for buyers to actually like, I trust Fernanda to like help me solve this problem, and I trust them to not screw me over commercials, over process, over substance, and tell me something that I don't need, or like tell me something that they will not deliver on. I think these are roughly like the 4 buckets I see.
Okay. Fernanda, you are an account executive with SalesPlaybook. What, in your experience, what are the key or the major challenges that you see when closing deals?
Well, first of all, everything that Mano mentioned is definitely a challenge, but I would add something as well, that a challenge for an account executive is usually to be as hard as to be able to move forward. Because if we're talking about recession right now, it's very common that you're going to listen to a lot of no's, and you're going to encounter a lot of negativity even. So I would say that resilience is one of the main keys at the moment. Never to lose the hope that you know that if you're doing a good job, if you're following your process, everything will just come in place at the right time.
Yeah, that's great. Manuel, so tell us about this deal desk and how you'd like to go about it with the audience.
Yeah, I think add any questions to like the chat here. Like, we cannot like unmute you, like put your camera on like LinkedIn Live, but please put down like the topics where you really struggle or where you like to know more about, like for example, converting a proof of concept to like a subscription. But you can also like have longer cases really like this. Like I'm attempting to sell 50K to this large bank. Like, this is what happened in the past. This is what we're up to. Any insights on how to de-risk the deal? Both works, like more functional questions on like how to tackle challenge XYZ, and concrete cases. Ideally, like it's really concrete deals.
Yeah. So who has a question? Who wants to go first? Don't be shy. Okay, so while everybody's gathering their courage to ask some questions here in the chat, Fernanda, why don't you use this opportunity, and maybe you've got some question that you'd like help?
Yes, I will bring a question that we usually listen a lot from the founders we speak with. How can you better follow up, Manuel, in these times? We're approaching the end of the year, right? What's the best way to follow up on an ongoing deal, given that we are coming to the end of the year and we have Christmas coming up? How would you recommend it?
Yeah, like it's a tricky one, depending on the case. Like, how much pressure do you want to exert on your buyer, right? So really, like the challenge then is like, do you still need to close a deal? Because like otherwise, like there's a compelling reason to act for somebody. Like, somebody wants to like have your solution go live in beginning of February, and you need 4 weeks to prepare. Then there's really a compelling reason to act and like take action now. They can reach out and say like, look, if you still want to keep the go live date of like 2nd of February 2023, we need to sign a deal like in 2022, because otherwise we cannot just like ramp it up. And then it makes sense to still like really push to close the deal this year. If you don't have this, like it's a bit up to you on like the balance, but like just pressuring people hard right now and say like, hey, let's close the deal because it's end of the year and end of my quarter as an account executive, will not serve you well, right? So you might need to do some concessions like 10, 20, 50% discounts, whatever, different payment terms and so on, accept other things that you might not need to accept if you just close a deal in January. So like, why I say balance, it's really a bit about the risk. Like, do you feel that deal will slip if you postpone it in January, for example, in corporates, because budget like then closes down and the budget is already made for next year. So what's really helpful there is, I think, deconstructing, like if people are like, hey, I cannot commit now. Is it because of like the budget? Is it because of like the cash going out? Is it because of capacity to start implementing? Or is it because some sort of concerns is still around, like some objections that you need to clarify? And only when you understand those, like, can you clarify all the concerns that enable you to sell a deal today? Or do you need like a meeting with like a board member of the firm who's already on Xmas vacation, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Very
Shall I
clear.
just take the questions from the comments? Or?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions in. Thank you.
Yeah, which is great. So Manuel B asked, like, can we see your platform in action, please? I'm not sure like if you can even screen share here, but also not about our platform as such here. So, but like, yeah, please reach out to ideally Fernanda, I guess, so she can give you a demo, such like in a sec. And then like, how do you manage for quality personalization and scale? People, I think, overestimate quality in terms of like high definition video and personalization in terms of like everything needs to be to you with relevance. So it's really a lot more about relevance. So if you have one message that's as close as of a niche, like to 100 people at the same time, but it's so relevant for everybody, then that really can be zero personalized and a really low quality video because it actually matters. So example, COVID outbreak, there's no masks anymore, and you like everybody needs to travel, and you write this like to literally 100 people, like I am the only guy with a mask in the world, and it costs like $10 now. That might be zero personalized, but it's relevant for absolutely everybody at this specific point in time. How do you scale this? At the beginning, like I would not focus on scale, but really like the making sure it works, and then be really specific on what works, and then try that out. Like if you go outbound sales, for example, like first 10 people, 20 people, if it still works, 50 people, see when it breaks, and then like break down into smaller cohorts. So lots of questions coming up here. Hopefully that answers your question, Stefan, and we'll just cover them as we go here. Aurel actually asked, like, we are doing B2B enterprise sales. Our approach has been outbound only and very targeted. Inbound, we're not sure about. How useful is video messaging to break the ice? I think it's absolutely very useful. It gives you 60 to 80% reply rate, for example, on LinkedIn, direct message after the initial connection. To break the ice, I would like have a short text snippets, for example, to get an acceptance request, or like get a short reply on like your cold email, because otherwise it might be a bit too personal, right? So it's like if you go to somebody in a bar or in a social setup, it's like, hey, Fernanda, I've seen you, like I watched you for the last 2 hours, and I'm gonna do a very personal, high quality approach. I already brought you the gin tonic, like you've been drinking here today and yesterday, and so on. And here's a personally written card. That's creepy to a certain extent. Versus, Fernanda, quick question, like what gin do you have like with your tonic? And that might be like a better icebreaker, like to have a more natural conversation. So video messaging, really useful. Break the ice with something a bit lower key, and then like have a personal video. For example, LinkedIn, 15 to 90 seconds video afterwards.
Thank you, Manuel, for your bar analogy. So for those of you who know Manuel, he's always talking about bar examples.
Or sports.
Yeah, I think sales is just like, in the end, it's about like B2B is about human to human, right? Like behind every business, there's a human being, and it's about social interaction. So first time, I think a colleague, Patrick Trumpi, told me like, hey, I asked him what subject line do you take for a cold email, for example, like to break the ice, and he said like quick question. And I was like, what's the quick question you ask? He said, no, man, I write quick question, because that's how you approach people in a social setup. Like quick question, where's the toilet? Where's the train station? So
where's the bar?
Keep it very natural. Yeah, where's the bar? From Everett Deal, so how to close out deals after software as a service demos. I think first sales house will really schedule in the next meeting, Paul. I think that's just like saving you tons of like back and forth via email and like hustling. And the second thing, really clear mutual action plan of what's gonna happen next. The third thing I think is also then to ask like a post-mortem, is like, hey, given that like I showed you a demo that was very relevant to you, what we discovered and how we did the qualification together, and we discussed about your concerns, like what could potentially go wrong, what can I help you like to take a decision. And then I think the last one is, as we said, like follow up with a video after the sales call to just make it easier for that person to internally position it and rewatch it without like watching the whole call. Hopefully answers your question, Everin Orel. So to Luca, how to filter your potential clients early so that you don't waste too much time with companies that won't do a deal. Short answer, discovering qualification quiz. So maybe you can share like our quiz link there. into the chat. So I think this is absolutely crucial what you ask, Luca, that you don't spend too much time with people that will never become customers, that you then cannot allocate to companies who have huge potential. I think it's really about like having your ideal customer profile and your message market fit in place, that you really know if that's going to be a good customer, if you can really help a ton. From Michael, do you think behaving as a teacher expert to your customers, prospect, and challenge them on the knowledge can be helpful to close deals faster, or does it put off people? And how much does it depend on the culture of the country? It's an excellent question. If you are more in the consultative selling space, where it's an educated market and people just want your opinion on what to do, as a consultant, as like a trusted advisor, yes, if you show them like, here's 3 things that can work for you in your industry, in your situation, pros and cons of scenario A, pros and cons of scenario B, pros and cons of scenario C, that's helpful for people because you act as a trusted advisor. If you go in, it's like, I will teach you how to live, I will teach you how to buy, like, and it's from above, like people typically don't appreciate it. You can also like have a challenger sales approach, and you can share something which is controversial, which might challenge them on the beliefs. Like, for example, one post I've seen today, like marketing, like content copywriters will not be required anymore as AI takes their job with ChatGPT. Like, that's a scary statement because it eradicates like millions of jobs, if that is true. And then people might start to argue like, no, because like humans need to do that. And like for AI, that would need to be true. And I see that as well. Or so you spark a conversation. It does not put people off if it comes from a place of genuine curiosity and the desire to help versus ego and putting yourself in a spotlight, in short.
So what would an example of that be?
An example of that would be just controversial, like on the Artist on Air podcast we discussed today morning, we discussed about like who do you hire as one of the first 2-3 sales hires? And like the conventional wisdom is like you hire a sales development rep, like a junior salesperson who's generating leads. My controversial statement was, well, maybe the founder is in the best position to generate leads and generate like demand because of authority and like because of like status and because of knowledge insights. And it might be so much easier for the founder. It might be 3 to 5 times easier than for a junior salesperson to generate high quality leads. And that can then actually give the volume to salespeople for them to ramp faster, be more successful, and sell better. And then the other people are like, interesting, never heard of that, founder and SDR. It seems like valid what you're saying there. So like, let me think about it for a bit. So it might put off some people, and it's just like, no, like SDR, account executive, CFSM model that works for everybody, and this is stubborn, and that's the way they believe in the world. And some people, like, whether they see certain thing, you need to give them a new perspective, and so there's actually like, okay, it's actually interesting. I can learn something from you without you making it about yourself and your ego, but actually helping me open new perspectives. And that happens a lot with like really good coaches, trainers in the world, that you go there and I've been snowboarding for 2 decades. And then a snowboard guy like told me like, go downwards. It's like, go ninja. I was like, what the fuck is go ninja? And I was like, yeah, hold your arms really like this, like outside, and like put your legs like really wide stance, because otherwise then you're more stable if it's really bumpy. And it worked. It was something that I could immediately implement. It was not about the teacher. It was just like really useful advice that will improve my snowboarding game forever.
That's a very interesting controversial take that you bring there, Manu. One thing that we often hear from founders is that sometimes they don't have the sales expertise. What would you recommend to a founder that does not know about the process, then they are not sales experts?
Yeah, I think learn from people who've done it before. You don't need to make the same mistakes. So, I mean, if you want to learn how to play guitar, you go to like a really good guitar player. If you want to learn how to play soccer, you go to somebody who can play soccer. If you want to learn how to sell, like go talk to somebody who sold like 7 figures in their life and who helped ideally other people do that as well. So that's the second component. Like, don't only go to like the world champion, but go to people who have actually like helped 100 other people become great as well. because the best like professionals are not always the best teachers or coaches. It's just like a slightly different skill set. And in sales, like there's so many great podcasts, books, like experts, like there's a lot of LinkedIn content from like industry leaders that share like knowledge for free. Then if it's really about like accountability, like to basically train your sales teams, to get coaching, to get accountability, to implement specific initiatives, then it can make sense, I think, to invest a 5-figure amount per year and just get things done faster, to build and scale sales quickly.
Very good. We have one more interesting question here from Aurel. How ineffective it is to sell to DACH region in English?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty general question, like as the DACH region, right? Like, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland, there's even difference between Lausanne, which is French speaking, and a lot of English speaking business because of international. And then like, for example, the very Swiss German speaking part. If you sell to corporates like ABB, Roche, and General Electric and so on, like where the company language is English, then that works actually better than in German. If you sell to like a small or medium business, or like if you sell to Migros Coop, which is very Swiss German speaking, like French speaking with French speaking CEO of Migros right now, you just really need to understand the language of your target audience. So for example, like the startup I built up sales for, like as first sales rep in the machine learning space, it was about automated data integration, transformation, and categorization with 36 proprietary machine learning algorithms in early 2017. And we sold to Migros, Coop, Rewe, Karstadt, the like, right, that didn't speak English at all. So like the first thing I pushed for probably was like translate the whole website to German and like make that our first language. And then it's really relevant. So to advise to Aurel, like really ask like the people you sell to, like what's your natural language? And that is not only English or German, it's also the whole terminology, like what words do they use? Like how do they speak? Do they speak like very formal, very informal slang? What terms do they use like to describe certain things? Because that can have a huge influence on like how you capture certain offerings, certain like FAQs, certain case studies, and make it as natural as possible in the language of your buyer. I think then does it make sense to hyper specialize certain roles, for example, sales copywriter part-time? In the beginning, no, I don't know like your revenue stage, or if you're already like 20 million ARR, then it can make sense if you get enough to do for them, right? If you have certain things which would fill like 5 different roles at one point, like LinkedIn ads is just a case where we work with an agency because you need a content strategist, you need a media buyer, you need like a funnel specialist that can track lead gen, and then you need like somebody who does creatives like animations and so on. It wouldn't make sense for us, like a small team, to hire 4 people, even part-time, just for the overhead. And then we rather give like a 4-figure retainer to this agency to get that done and orchestrated internally. So does hyper specialization make sense for certain roles? Yes. Does it make sense for you as a startup founder to hire these people? Typically no, until 5 to 10 million ARR.
Good.
Yeah.
I have another one here. Best book to learn from basics of B2B sales. Very good.
Depends which basics you mean. I mean, like we have like short ebooks ourselves on like the 25 top moves in B2B startup sales, and then like some actionable advice on just the top challenges, like which might be useful. Otherwise, like it really depends on what you love to learn, like storytelling, outbound sales, structuring like sales process, closing more bigger deals faster, like in this case here. For closing more bigger deals faster, I'd say pitch anything and flip the script from Oren Clough is still like really important because it teaches you a lot about psychology. And then Speed of Trust from Stephen M. R. Covey is really good on understanding like when people buy, like that once you build trust, like everything moves so much faster. So about 5 minutes left, 4 questions left. I'll just go through them. Then if you have further questions, maybe we can just share like the book, the call to action also to book a call, or like to actually like register for like the whole academy part and like find out more. From Luca, what kind of feedback structure do you implement in your deal closing and sales, and how do you try to improve your calls? First thing is like, we have a weekly deal desk now where the whole sales team can bring deals they're currently working on, or they just won, they just lost, and like just weekly improve things. The second thing is record your calls, so you actually see your speaking listening ratio with a tool such as Unique, and then like have certain checklist of like making sure you have a structured script. Like doesn't need to be word by word if like you're very advanced, like, but get that you do intro, discovery, qualifications, status quo thesis, sales pitch short one, like concern handling, then closing part. And then do mock-up calls a lot of times. Like any sport, like people practice, like nobody goes into a boxing fight before like practicing something like 1,000 times before and doing a sparring. So I don't see to this day why people go into really important like sales calls to close a deal that they haven't practiced at least 3 times before. Then from funding model and selling to banks really requires knowing the internal decision-making process, but sometimes for new solutions that require multiple teams to be involved to improve, this can be never-ending. How do you best communicate where to draw the line without making it sound too much like an ultimatum? One thing, go top-down. I mean, go to the CEO, CIO, whoever could sign, and that person then will tell you like who to approach. And like if you ask them politely, like, hey, the last time you purchased something like this, not your solution, but the last time you solved the problem in this space, it's never about your product. How did that work? Can you walk me through? And then build a mutual action plan with like your champion, the person who has like the highest interest and some internal power to drive the process forward and like help that person get it through. And if the deal doesn't move, just tell the person like, hey, look, we might be in one of 3 spots here. Like 1, the challenge is not interesting enough, it's not relevant enough to solve for now. Like then let's stop here. Let's talk again in 3 months. 2, there's certain open points. We need to resolve them. Like there's certain hoops we need to jump through. Let's discuss them so we can resolve them. Or 3, there's nothing. I'm just really afraid to like take a final decision, to make a mistake, give you 100% action-based money back guarantee, or like, hey, we like help you with the implementation. We join you for a kickoff in person. Like whatever reduces risk to take that decision. Another one to Orel, are you still using cold calling in the initial sequence? For example, after 1 to 2 steps, email LinkedIn, then call 100%. Short answer. If you can get a phone number, pick up the phone, start dialing, right? As soon as you get an email reply, you typically get a phone number. If you get an out of office now over Christmas, I mean, see, like snooze the email in your Gmail office inbox to when the person returns, like +1 day, call them up actually and say like, hey, how was your vacation in XYZ? Because you actually get it. Yeah, I think that's like out of office replies can be really useful in that regard. From Michael Kuse, to close the deal, what about setting time-based or constraints or any context-related constraints? What's the risk in doing so? The risk, if you do them artificially, is that you lose trust, you lose authority. Like if you tell like my offer is only valid until like this Friday, until like the 16th of December. It's like, why? Like, what if I want the same offer next week? Like, oh, I will not give you the offer. It's like, okay, go, let's just wait. I will ask you next week. Like, how about the offer? Like, it's more expensive. And I'm, nah, I don't think so. Because I don't understand it. If you're a startup founder and you have limited capacity because you're a company of like 5, 10 people, maybe 20, and you can credibly go to people and say like, look, we do these large ERP rollouts or core banking systems, and we only have capacity for 2 projects a quarter. One's already signed, and right now we're having 3 conversations with like final decisions like this week before Christmas, and we'll take the first one. That's just what it is. We don't have more capacity. That's a natural constraint. If you're, for example, then also having a time-based constraint, literally like on your customer needs a certain outcome, needs to have like a person on the ground, needs to have a certain system go live, whatever it is, needs to have like their web shop running for Black Friday just shortly. for them, it's really relevant that you get things done before like the 20th of November, because like if the system goes live after Black Friday, it's pretty useless. Christmas, but really figure out if there's a compelling reason to act for your buyer. And if so, use that. Don't do anything artificial. I think that pretty much closes the show on like time-wise, right?
Yes, I believe that was our last question as we're coming to an end. So what advice would you give, Manuel, for people who want to know more about how to close bigger deals now?
Yeah, I think just really learn from people who've done it before. Who, like, if you want to learn how to close 5-6-figure deals, which is the most frequent deals as our 200 plus customers actually close, then talk to people who have done that and learn from the podcasts, books, resources, and also like regular calls with people such as this. Then the other one, like really, like go to an academy. Like if you want to learn, I don't know, like JavaScript or like Python, you go to like a tech boot camp. In that case, like go to a closing boot camp. I mean, I was stunned, like in my career as an account executive, that I just couldn't find anything that's specific to B2B software as a service startup. So we actually built that. So I think that's like, ask your founder, ask your board or CEO to like give you like low four figures actually, and so like, hey, can I buy these books, like join these podcasts, learn from this academy and get things done, because the return is huge. Like it's a very simple math. Like you invest a 4-figure amount, you close an additional 5-figure deal, it's like a 10x ROI.
Agreed.
Good. Any last closing thoughts, Manuel? Or should we sign off here? 32 minutes.
Last closing thought, don't mess up trust. Even if you're under high pressure right now and like your founder, your VP says like close all at all costs, right? I think moving into 2023, people will remember like the good buying experiences and like the sales reps who pressured them really high and who took care of them and like not primarily thought about themselves as sales reps. So like help your people out, like help your buyers out, and they will help you out next year. Another way around, if you destroy trust, it's really hard to build up once it's destroyed. So see your role as a sales rep, as an account executive, as a person helping people solve problems.
And a closing thought from you, Fernanda, from an account executive point of view?
Yes, never, well, I'll go back to that. Never take it personally when you get a no. Always go back to your process and analyze what could have you done different. Where is actually the flaw in your process? Go back there, try to fix it, see if the deal is still possible to save. Otherwise, move on to the next one. But never let yourself take the blame for something that didn't work. Just go and move on.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Fernanda and Manuel. And thank you for everybody who joined, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.